As a result of the economic fallout from the pandemic, many people have to find new jobs or even new pathways to employment. One source of help with that is almost $2.5 million for training programs recently committed by the city's Neighborhood Jobs Trust. To tell us about the programs and the city's training strategy is the director of the Mayor's Office of Workforce Development, Trinh Nguyen. Thank you very much for being with us, Trinh.
It's always lovely to be here, Chris, and thank you for your work.
Trin, there's one thing that is definitely different at this time is that instead of training people for the same things that have been going on for the past several years or even decades, you have to think of new job goals for people. So what does that mean for your department?
Yep. So, Chris, that's a really good question, and we've had a lot of inquiries around that. So, first, it's not just about the kinds of jobs. We know that the unemployment rate has just skyrocketed, and for communities of color, it's just quadrupled. And that massive job loss, we're unsure what kinds of jobs will come back and what jobs will actually be eliminated forever. So you have that one portion of the question and challenge, but you also have another one, which is how training is provided differently in this uh, post and during COVID-19. So we have a lot of workforce training agencies that have moved from bricks and mortar training to digital and online training, which is a different skill set. We have a lot of assessments and tests that used to be in person that allows for that personal communication and coaching has moved more on to online. And so as important as the kinds of jobs we had to train for, we also had to look at quickly different models of what training subjects and what types of and kinds of training that our partners have to provide to keep up with the pandemic and changes.
Well, one pathway to employment that people have been using for a long time is community colleges and maybe some of the other colleges around Boston. But right now, I guess there's a financial challenge that you're trying to get some more help with too, right?
Absolutely. I mean, what we with Mayor Walsh's and the City of Boston's tuition-free community college program, we've always focused on increase in enrollment, but equally important is completion. So we don't want to just get residents and students enrolled, but we want to make sure that we're providing them with support so that they can complete their journey as well. So obviously the pandemic, the job losses, the childcare issues, housing, rentals, etc., have been so hard with community college students. And so one of the things that we've done is one is to ensure that tuition and fees are paid for the students in our program. And two is that what student support do you need to complete? So is it a laptop? Is it various coaches? Is it certain gift cards that you need to use to expend so that you can get there? So we have been linking students with support, financial resources so that they can finish just this semester. So that's something that the Neighborhood Jobs Trust is also prioritizing.
Another critical need for getting a job is learning English, and people have to do that a different way now. So how is the city going to help them with that?
I think that's something that we've always prioritized. I mean, Boston has a huge immigrant labor workforce. We are dependent on it. So our first and foremost priority is to the immigrant community as well. So one thing we did do is to ensure that all the ESL language institutes and classes have enough resources to sustain themselves for this year and next year. So what we did was we had made commitments. We finished off our commitment this year with flexibility and made an additional year next year so that they won't uh, feel stressed out about whether or not they're going to lose funding. The second thing that we did, Chris, was immediately we teamed up with tech support partners. And so we provided grants with pro bono and private funding from those tech support companies and training providers to provide IT training to English language learners. And then after they complete the training, they get to keep their Chromebooks and laptops. And we also provide, free Wi-Fi or hotspots if needed with those laptops. So we're looking at this as what immediate support do we need for students and graduates to complete job training and their community colleges at the same time. So we have been hands-on to provide whatever resources and support it needs that students need.
Even if we have a pretty quick recovery overall, it looks as if there's going to be, at best, a lag in the hotel and restaurant sectors. You're targeting workers in those areas. What can you do for them?
So I think that's a very vulnerable constituent right now because hotel and hospitality industry has been hit hardest during the pandemic. So there are a few things that we've been doing, working with Local 26, with the hospitality hotel workers to find out what training do they have to complete so that they can re-enter into the workforce. So for example, when we talk with Best Corps, who teams up and partners with Local 26, they needed training on environmental positions. They also needed training on how and what to use on in terms of cleaning products, what safety precautions that workers need to take. Those things have changed during COVID-19 and after. So we want to make sure that worker safety is important, and the new training or revised training is embedded in the curriculum moving forward. So that's one thing that we did do. The second thing that we did provide emergency grants to nonprofits and longstanding community-based groups uh, in in Boston's neighborhoods to provide training and on-the-job uh, paid stipends for restaurant workers who have been immediately laid off, so that they can either help provide delivery of food services to those in need. So as they're retraining for another experience, they also can help get stipends to move them along the economic ladder.
Now, is this something that Viet Aid is going to be involved in, or would they be doing some other things to help workers?
So they have been involved with the immigrant and other Vietnamese, Southeast Asian, and even the Haitian and Cape Verdean immigrant communities as well. So Viet Aid has been instrumental, along with the Brazilian Workers Center in Austin, Brighton, and along with the Chinese Progressive Association Worker Center. All three of them have been instrumental in being that outreach in the grassroots community to know who has been laid off and most severely impacted, to bring them back in and retrain and provide on-the-job training. So Viet Aid, along with many other partners, are helping us to outreach to those who have been most impacted so that they can be retrained and ready to be on the front lines, to be re-engaged and re-employed once the the market opens up.
I know we've talked a lot about jobs being lost, but where do you see jobs being gained, at least in the near future?
Yes, so in the immediate future, as of right now, I think that we have been looking at jobs in the long-term care. I know that the state and private sectors focusing on long-term care and nursing homes, they're hiring aggressively. Frontline healthcare workers are being called back now that elective surgery from hospitals have been welcomed back. So there are some of those jobs that are slowly coming back. The question is at what capacity what scale, and how quickly do they need those workers. So we're seeing that in the healthcare sector, which is the biggest and the most long-standing growth industry in the city of Boston. The second area that we're seeing growth in, Chris, is short-term drivers, delivery trucks, for Amazon's, any kind of job that requires either a commercial driver's license, short-term driving for delivery is in demand. Um, and so while that doesn't necessarily need credentialed workforce training, we do want to ensure that safety precautions are being provided for those workers. So the agencies that you talked about, Viet Aid, we talked about the Chinese Progressive Associations, JVS, Jewish Vocational Service, all our great longstanding partners are stepping up to not only provide workforce training credentials, but also worker safety. Because at the end of the day, we still love and protect our workers, and we want them to have jobs. And we know that it's a hard time in the labor market right now, but we also want people to be careful and make informed choices and be prepared when you're taking on those jobs.
Well, finally, if anybody who needs help with this wants to get that, is there any way that they can go online and get some more details?
Absolutely. We have over 80 community partners, and we also work with collaborating partners, so workforce training agencies and also safety nets. You can find a lot of information on our website at owd.boston.gov. Boston's Office of Workforce Development has a ton of resources. You can also email us at owd.gov and email us, and we usually have someone return your message as soon as possible. You can also call the city's 311 hotline and ask any particular questions around housing, training, transportation, workforce, testing, safety precautions. Call 311 for the city line, and they will refer you to the right entity to answer your questions.